Hi, I'm Raquel with Rock and Roll Industry Magazine. I'm here with Eddie Trunk. How you doing, Eddie?
Hi, Raquel. Good to see you.
Great to see you too. I love it every time you come out here. So, what brings you to the 30th anniversary of Metal Blade? What's your history with them?
Well, my history goes back to Metal Blade in a lot of different ways, actually. Next year, for me, is my 30th anniversary doing a metal radio show.
All right.
So I started doing metal radio about a year after Metal Blade started. So obviously, because of that, doing metal radio shows, metal record label, I did a lot of stuff with Metal Blade over the years and played a lot of their bands. And also, I worked. A lot of people don't know this. In the 80s, I worked in the music industry for record labels. I worked for Megaforce Records, and that was kind of like the East Coast thing of Metal Blade. On the East Coast, we had Megaforce, and out here was Metal Blade. So I worked in the industry side of things, and I got to know Brian Slagle back then. So I've known Slagle for probably almost 30 years, and he's to this day a great friend and a great fan of metal, and we bond over the bands we love more than anything to do with the industry. And Mike Faley, who works for Metal Blade, I've known for 30 years as well. So they're all friends, and it's all a big metal family. And the reason I'm here is because of them. They brought me out here to co-host this event, and it's been an honor to do it so far.
That's great. You as well are promoting. You were just in Vegas for a book signing. You want to tell me some stuff about your book?
Well, my book came out. My first book is called Eddie Trunk's Essential Hard Rock and Heavy Metal, and it came out almost 2 years ago now. And it is my thing. I've always been about rock, hard rock, and metal. I like it all. I like commercial hard rock, and I like heavy metal, and I like thrash, and I like all sorts of stuff. So my book is a reflection of all that. You're going to get all sorts of styles of the music that I grew up loving. The thing I did in Vegas was actually present an award to Sammy Hagar, so I just happened to throw a book signing onto that, because if I go somewhere and there's an opportunity, I'll do a book signing. So I was really there to do something called the Vegas Rocks Awards, where I presented Sammy an award. But my second book is about 90% done, and it's a sequel to my first one, and it's going to be coming out at the end, probably like the fourth quarter of next year. So I'm almost done with it. I've got 3 more chapters to write. And thanks to everybody who supported and bought the first book, because it was a huge success, and that's why I'm getting to do a second one.
No, definitely. The reason I ask is I obviously follow you on Twitter. So your 30 year, is this going to be coming around the same time as when your second book's going to be done?
It's like I don't have like an exact month in 2013 that I'm going to commemorate as the 30th year. It's really going to be kind of like, I'm trying to do an event for my 25th anniversary in metal radio. Judas Priest played a private show for me in New York, which was the most insane thing ever, if you can imagine. Judas Priest playing a private show for you. So that's going to be hard to top. But I'm working on some stuff that I want to do, because I'm based in New York, New Jersey. So I'm working on some stuff that I want to do to celebrate the 30th anniversary, a big concert event like that again, if I can pull it off, and we'll see what happens. But if the book ties in around that time, the event for the 30th is going to be more about the band that I get schedule versus any schedule with my book. If it so happens to work out, that'll be great.
So I was reading on your website too. One of the first bands you ever liked was the Raspberries.
Yeah.
Tell me about that and how that, grew into where you are now. Because obviously everybody looks at you as an icon for metal, but originally...
well, that's the Raspberries certainly are not a metal band. Anyone who's seen the cover of their first album, they're wearing leisure suits on it, and it's like the early 70s. But the Raspberries were what's known as a power pop band. And what I mean by my first favorite band is I'm talking when I was a little kid. And they were a band that used distorted guitars over melody that I first heard that got me interested in electric guitar and distorted guitar. So we almost lost your whole setup. No, we're good. We're good, man. You saved it. There you go. So the Raspberries were the band that got me into like loud guitars. As like I'm talking like a 10-year-old kid. And then from there, it bridged in, the band I really got into after that, like that most people know in the hard rock metal world, was Kiss. But ironically, Raspberries were an influence on Kiss. Raspberries were also an influence on Motley Crue. Motley Crue covered a Raspberry song. So there is a connection, even though it doesn't seem like it on the surface. And they were like the first band for me.
So, in the industry of pop or hard rock pop, I just kind of want you to elaborate. So, did you ever get? Let me know what you have done for like rock or like for the first kind of music that you were into before the whole metal.
Well, for me, I mean, I'm not a musician. I don't play anything. I took some drum lessons when I was a kid, but that didn't really pursue it much. So for me, my whole gig was about, okay, well, I'm not going to be a musician, so what can I do to help spread the word on the bands that I love?
Yeah.
So right out of high school, I was writing music column. I worked in a record store for years. I did radio. I did college radio when I was still in high school. I started radio right out of high school, and I still do two radio shows a week nationally. So, for me, it's always been about all about what can I do to spread the word of the bands and the music that I love, because unfortunately so many of these bands have an incredibly hard time getting played or getting acceptance. So I try to do that. And I was just talking to someone before, though, it's still a fight. I mean, after 30 years, it's still a fight every day to get people to understand that this stuff is important.
Well, it's awesome to have someone like you on our team. And so I wanted to kind of talk to you also, too, about the starting of that metal show. You obviously want to spread the word of good music, but, how did it just pertain to metal, or would it be like everything under the realm of hard rock, thrash?
Well, anybody that's seen that metal show knows that even though it's called that metal show, we have all sorts of bands on there. We have rock, hard rock, metal bands. What people need to understand about the TV show, though, is it's on a network, and the network ultimately decides what we can and can't do and who we can and cannot have on.
No censorship, right?
Well, it's not censorship. It's just that television is about getting the most people possible to watch it. So it's like, I may have a band that I love to death, but they're just not all that popular. And the network's not going to say, well, we're going to put a band on that people don't, when they click the channel, don't recognize who they are. And they always want the biggest, most recognizable faces. And I understand that. It's a ratings game. So, it's sometimes it's hard to get certain bands on that we want to get on. And, certain genres of it we can't cover and we don't cover, but we have a niche and we have a following, and the show's been on for 11 cycles and over 4 years, and we're grateful for what we have, man. It's been an amazing ride, and it continues, and I don't know where it's going to go, but it's been incredible, and it's really amazing to see how many people that love it. And for me, what people don't know is I worked for VH1 Classic for 6 years before that metal show. So this is actually my 10th year as a host for the channel. I did all sorts of music and all sorts of interviews before that metal show. And I love doing that. Even though rock and metal is my passion, I love talking to people from all different genres of music, and I hope to do that again someday. But I just thank everybody for watching it and supporting it. Because of that, we're doing so well. So.
No, I absolutely love it. I'm a big fan. I've been in the audience quite a few
You've been
times.
in the audience many times.
Oh, it's probably the best experience ever. You know what I really like that you guys do is, even though you say there's only certain kind of types of people that can be on it, you have a moment where you're like, all right, well, I like this CD, and it's an underground metal album. So
yeah, there's a lot of ways. There's a lot of ways that we, as fans, the three of us, support these bands, even if they're not on. We may talk about them. We may pick them as a pick of the week. It may be something as simple as wearing one of their T-shirts. Something that we can do to help just create some exposure for them. They may not be big enough or mainstream enough to actually be on the set and get an interview, but as fans, we'll find ways to try to get the word out, and every little bit helps. And something as big as a platform as a TV show, with as big as that's gotten, not only in America, but we're on all over the world now. It's just, it's just our way of at least helping, because we can't just find any band we want and say, come on. It's got to go through a process. And, I play a big role in getting the bands on and booking the show. But at the end of the day, the network still has to say yes or no.
how about the scene of metal? What are you thinking what's taking place right now, and where do you see it going? There's a lot of cool bands coming out right now in the metal scene. And, I'm thinking they just need a voice or some kind of promotion. So what bands do you like?
Well, there's so many bands, and there's so many genres, and there's so many spin-offs and subgenres and stuff like that. One of the things I most like is this sort of retro vibe that I see a lot of bands doing, like Gypsy Hawk.
Gypsy Hawk, yeah, they were amazing.
Yeah, I like that sort of. There's like elements of Thin Lizzy in their sound. They're a new band, but they have an old school sound. Same with like a band like Black Country Communion, who I love. Band from here in LA called Rival Sons that I love. That are just that capture like almost a 70s sort of vibe, but they're new, young bands bringing that sort of energy to it. So I personally like that. I see that as an emerging thing, and I don't know if any of them are going to break through. I hope they do, but I kind of like that.
I've been asking this question to a lot of like metal managers and big people in the music industry. Who's going to hold the torch after bands like Judas Priest and Iron Maiden?
That's a great question, and nobody really knows. Are there bands from the 80s or 90s that could sustain that and have that sort of aura? I mean, if you look at the 80s, there's a few bands from the 80s that, listen, an 80s band is still 10 years younger than the bands you just mentioned. So, you could say that if Motley Crue can hang in there, they could become that kind of band maybe. But honestly, I don't know. And then you look into the 90s and, the bands from like the grunge scene, Soundgarden is back, Pearl Jam still does unbelievable business. So, maybe some of that stuff, even though it's already kind of like a classic rock for today, that's still significantly younger. And, Rage Against the Machine, who do some stuff again, stuff like that. Maybe that becomes the classic rock of 20, 30 years, because even though I think the Stones probably still will be going at 90,
Can you believe that? I know we still got these rockers up there at 60, which is fantastic. So,
well, if they're still good, that's the thing I feel really strongly about. Like, I have no problem with guys doing this as long as they want to, if they can still do it and they're still good. I think there's some guys up there that are actually going through the motions and have lost a lot, and it's kind of made a mockery of their bands, and it's gotten very diluted, and I'm not really into I think they should have retired. But then there's just as many bands that I see, like I just saw Aerosmith 3 times in the last couple of weeks, and Cheap Trick together, and their 2 bands have been around 40 years, and they're as good as they've ever been.
the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, and I had the best time there. I know you'll be out there. You want to say anything about that?
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to that. It's the first time I'm doing that. It's March in Vegas, and Sammy Hagar and Steve Vai and some other people to be announced. And yeah, I'm going to do like a kind of a Q&A thing, kind of like what we're doing, and talk to some people and give everybody some, any sort of advice or help that I can give them, and answer questions and interview. I think I'll probably interview some of the guys that are the musicians. So I'm looking forward to it. It's my first time and my first experience with that, and that'll be fun in March. There's a lot of cool stuff coming up that I'm going to be doing. And you mentioned, if you follow on Twitter, which is just at Eddie Trunk or eddietrunk.com, those are the 2 things I use most to communicate with people outside of my radio and TV shows, obviously.
And you got your website, my
site's going to go through a big redesign for the new year too, which I'm excited about. It's long overdue. There's going to be some fresh stuff, and it's going to look better, and it's going to be some great new content. So I'm really excited about that. Somebody new is going to be working on it soon.
Thanks, everyone. I'm Raquel with Rock and Roll Industry Magazine, here with Eddie Trunk, saying later.
Thank you.